Are you pondering what I'm pondering?
I don't think you're happy enough.
Are you pondering what I'm pondering?
I don't think you're happy enough.
Smithers, dismember the corpse and send his widow a corsage.
I could pull a better cartoon out of my ass. Hey, whoa! Wasn't that great, kid?
Yo,
what is up, friend?
okay, so let's introduce ourselves.
This is Andy Bonesteel.
My name is Damon Jones, and
What are we? And
okay, this is the Atomic Rotation podcast. What we like to do is from time to time, we like to take a topic, a subject, whether it be movies, television, comic books, and kind of just examine it and give our takes on it. And today we're actually going to talk about the television series, The Flash, on CW. It's in its first season.
yeah, it looks like we're up to episode 14 right now. Last episode we had on was Fallout, where a nuclear explosion separated Ronnie and Dr. Stein.
Now, before we really get into it, I just want to say, as an overall, actually, the show is pretty solid. It's a pretty solid effort. Personally, when I first heard about the series, I kind of had my reservations because, you know, based off of Arrow, it was like a totally different sort of character, and it was kind of like, you know, okay, can they actually pull this off? You know, are they getting cocky? But I was pleasantly surprised. It actually exceeded my expectations. The storyline is entertaining, but it's very sci-fi, and it's dramatic. It's not like kind of insulting your intelligence, but at the same time, it still respects the comic mythos, and you know, it's walking that fine line of like a modern kind of sci-fi but entertaining show.
I agree. It has a comedy aspect to it, but it's not hokey. It's very, very scientific, very thought out. I agree with you when you said that when it was going to be a spinoff of Arrow, I was a little nervous about that. Arrow has a few flaws. I mean, I like the Arrow, but it's a completely different tone than anything that the Flash should be. So,
absolutely, it didn't try to copy Arrow's tone whatsoever. It didn't go dark. It wasn't afraid to, you know, go ahead and tell a story where there's darkness in it, but it's not purposely gritty.
Exactly. And the fact that it is a spinoff, they did a really good job of not beating you over the head that the fact that this guy is connected to Arrow in the first episode.
Absolutely. It stands on its own. Absolutely. Like, even some of the structures, because I was a little, you know, at first I was a little worried about the whole supporting cast trope where, you know, you got the, you know, backup crew in the headquarters. But the thing is, it's a risky thing to do to kind of risk repeating yourself. But the reason why it works is because they do it in an original way. It's not the exact same sort of backup crew. This is more of a think tank, kind of just like some eggheads compared to Arrows. Everybody's mostly fighters except for like maybe Felicity.
Yeah,
so
exactly. They take more of an aspect of the military in Arrow, whereas in the Flash, like you said, it's very scientific.
Absolutely. So, you know, it doesn't repeat itself. You know, and I got to tell you, they've had some pretty impressive effects. I've been surprised a couple times. I was like, wow, off a television budget, you know, it's very solid effects for like any format, really.
Yeah, of course. They were actually nominated for a visual effects award for the Visual Effects Society Awards, but did not win it.
Yeah. Well, you know, I definitely see, you know, they should be up for some nominations because, like I said, it definitely exceeded my expectations. But then, also, I like the costume design. It's modern. It's not too comic booky. But it still reflects the classic factors of it. You know, the villains aren't coming off unnecessarily. costumed, but they respect classic aspects of them. So, it's been pretty good. And another thing is they've been able to weave the cameos and, different characters, and without making it too much of a, fanboy, fan service sort of moment, just, for no reason. They've been able to weave it in, necessary to the plot.
When the show first started, it seemed like you were just going to get metahuman of the week, where they're just going out finding a new metahuman, pulling them in and trapping them in their little prison that they've built. But, yeah, they veered away from that a little bit and gave you a little bit more drama, a little bit more believability.
Because, the thing is, at first I was a little worried about Firestorm. I was like, they're throwing in characters as fan service. But the thing is, it actually did serve the plot, because it was an example of, okay, here's another metahuman, but he's not automatically evil. It's not just there's only one who happens to be good and everybody's just automatically evil when they get power. So that serves the plot to show that, there are other reactions to becoming a metahuman. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it fits the plot. It wasn't the last probably couple seasons of Smallville, they threw just blatant fan cameos. They didn't necessarily fit into the plot. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, of course. I had to stop paying attention to Smallville after season 3, because it fell apart for me.
It stopped being as plot driven and kind of more so, we're gonna give you these moments and these characters that you want to see, but it was more kind of blatant fan service than it was because there's a fine line where you can absolutely respect the source material, but tell also something original and, have it, be purposeful when you do use it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like you were saying about the suit, how the suit had great design and it had reason. I like the fact that they explained it with the fact that it was going to be a prototype firefighter suit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, I definitely I respect the fact that they take it seriously as a sci-fi aspect. I had never known this was a comic book, and this was on a sci-fi channel. It would hold up as, solid sci-fi. It's not just, hey, here's a superhero, and no explanations, and even how they handled, him having his rogues gallery and all of this. It was one of the old tropes that they've used over again, we're going to Fantastic Four and Hulk everybody. This big accident, and now everybody has powers, you know what I mean? They used it in Humans, Eternals, Misfits, even Milestone Comics, their universe. But they, it's a convenient thing because you don't want to have it to where you just having all these accidents all over the place just so happen and just be creating superhuman people just coincidentally just so happen to. So if you have something like that, it's more feasible that you'd have such this variety of different casts with powers floating around. It fits into the narrative. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's exactly what Smallville's problem was, is that they would have a tragedy happen every other week, and you're like, wow, why would anybody want to live in this city?
Yeah, absolutely. The convenient accident, just over and over and over again, Smallville's a whole nother conversation. We'll be 2 hours on Smallville. But it's been very interesting seeing how it's, built up. Like I said, they have distinctive supporting cast. Their original, I don't feel like they're repeating themselves. The whole different tone. I even, I'm not even nauseated by the mandatory, love plot.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just falls flat because that's all it really is. But actually, I don't mind with, Barry and Iris. Yeah.
Yeah, that seems like a subplot. It doesn't seem like it's just they're putting in there just to please some part of a demographic. It feels organic.
And it's it's not nauseating. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. He's not just head over heels puppy dog love.
Yeah, he's just not completely dead inside, on everything else. It's he's still okay, it'll be great, but you know what I mean? it's not such a bummer, like how, like, maybe, I hate to say this, because I do respect Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, but, like, how Peter Parker was with Mary Jane, it was just,
oh, yeah.
at times, it was like, oh, my God, give me a break, bro.
It was, he was 10 years old, and it was the first girl that he ever fell in love with.
Yeah, it got really, like, at points, it was like, come on, man. Give me a more modern Peter.
Yeah, especially after he got the superpowers, it's like, dude, you're Spider-Man. Grow some nuts. Like, you can do whatever you want.
Absolutely. But just, I mean, I don't know. It was just like, but like I said, that's what the difference is here. It, like, it's there and it's entertaining, and I'm actually invested to see, like, how it develops. It isn't like I feel like, oh, I got to sit through this fucking part. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And I like the fact that Barry Allen is a forensic scientist, but they don't beat you over the head with it. It's not like you're watching NCIS with superpowers. Yeah, but they still apply it enough where exactly. They apply it in there because for this kind of show, you want to see science, you want to see explanations and crazy experiments, basically. And the fact that they test his limits pretty much every episode is cool.
Right,
I like it.
Yeah, so like this latest episode that we actually just saw, dealing a lot with, like we were talking about the Firestorm character and kind of wrapping that story arc up. But it also continued the plot about Dr. Wells and the whole time travel reverse flash scenario. How
Dr. Wells isn't what he seems to be. There's a darker side to him. They haven't fully explained who he is yet. For some reason, he has the yellow suit, the reverse flash suit. Haven't really explained why he has it. Haven't actually said that he has reverse flash. I have a little bit of a theory that he could be a character named Zoom, because there's a lot of connections between. No, absolutely. That's what the thing is. I actually recently had been looking up a little bit of the the mythos, and the comic book mythos or whatever, and I was looking up like some stuff on Professor Zoom, Reverse Flash, and I have a theory. I actually have a theory. I feel like this may be complete bullshit nonsense, but it's based off of a combination of what they've shown, the little breadcrumbs they've thrown out, and then also some of the comic book plot, which I think is a little bit of an amalgam of a few different things, because there are a few different versions of Professor Zoom and Reverse Flash. Yeah. Their backgrounds, their origin stories. There are a few different versions. But I think they're kind of combining a couple of those versions. Yeah. And I think they're actually mixing it a little bit with Flashpoint and also Flash Rebirth. That storyline that actually brought Barry Allen back to life in the comics. And a little bit of Final Crisis as well. Possibly. I got to go back and look at Final Crisis. Well, that's when Barry Allen was actually reborn. Yeah, but it was a specific plot called Flash Rebirth. But he's always involved in the crisis. You're right about that. That's something that, is notorious to the Flash, storyline. Is, the crisis era is like he died originally in a, comic book which gave birth to the new DC universe, and then they did it again with Flashpoint, and that gave birth eventually to the New 52 universe. But here's what my theory is, though. A little bit of Reverse Flash, Professor Zoom, Flashpoint, and my theory is, okay, this Dr. Wells, he's a scientist from the future, and I think he looked up to Flash. He had a little bit of hero worship going on, and Flash, in history, like he
dies somehow in this crisis that happens, whatever this mysterious crisis is. He dies in it trying to stop it or whatever. And I think Dr. Wells, because he's spent his life studying the Flash, he recreates the experiment and gives himself these powers. And I think he takes it upon himself to go to the past to try to save the Flash, to improve him. But I think, when he arrives in the past, maybe Flash thinks he's crazy, and, maybe, he won't. He kind of rebuffs him. It results in a lot of battles, and perhaps Wells sees, as a Reverse Flash, he sees that he's not going to give Barry the edge that he's trying to give him, so he says, I got to start earlier. So he goes to the past even further, and somehow Barry finds out and he follows him. And, maybe Barry thinks he's going to try to kill Barry as a kid, so he goes to try to save himself. But Wells ends up killing his mother instead, because Wells' whole goal is to give Flash the kind of edge that he needs to be able to, I think, do what he needs to do to stop this crisis in the future. So he feels like taking his mother away will give him this anger and this kind of edge and this, kind of desperation. So anyway, once he kills the mother, he goes further in the future, but only far enough just before, like somewhere where Barry's a teenager. And he takes on a new identity. Maybe he gets rid of the guy who's going to create this particle accelerator or, whatever creates his accident. He takes his place and he takes on the research where he's going to do it himself. But he's far enough in the future, but far back enough that he can build a profile for himself in the past. And he sits and waits at the same time and watches how Barry develops from afar, just observing. And he waits for the appropriate time. He gets the research. He builds the same machine that's where the accident's going to happen, but he's going to make it happen at the time. And he makes the accident happen, creates Barry, but this time he's there, right fresh off, discovers them and takes them in and say, okay, now I'm going to develop you under my wing and give you this edge that I need you to have. You already got this frustration and this obsession. Now I'm going to mold you. And that might be completely ridiculous. It might be totally wrong. So in short, what I'm kind of saying is this is actually what we're watching is a new timeline. Like, he's already been the Flash already. This is actually a new timeline that we're watching because obviously this fight has already happened.
Yeah, I agree with that. That goes along with a lot of the research that I was doing where
and he absolutely, and he said to him, like, we've been doing this over and over again. So there must have been at some point that he first approached him where he built this rivalry, where they battled so much. You know what I mean?
Like the character Zoom, it's not actually Professor Zoom, it's just Zoom. Is a character name.
No, Professor Zoom is the second. That was the second guy.
Yeah, but his backstory is very similar to what Harrison Wells is, because Hunter Zolomon was actually in some sort of battle with Gorilla Grodd, and Gorilla Grodd paralyzed him, and he actually did go back in time to try and mold Barry to kind of help situations. Like, he was a villain, but at the same time, he wanted to fix the wrongs that he had already done.
Yeah, Zoom was insane. He was driven by grief, and he wanted Barry to see tragedy so Barry would understand that he had to risk everything in order to prevent tragedy. But Zoom, you got to understand, was the modern Zoom. Like, Professor Zoom was the original, and it had similarities, as far as like him being obsessed with Flash or whatever. But that was the storyline where he came from the future. That's why I kind of think it's a combination of.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree.
I think it's a combination of, like, because it's so many backstories. I felt like what they probably said is that we can't honor all of this. So what we'll do is we'll take the pieces that fit along with our original kind of direction that we're going to go in.
Yeah, and the thing about Zoom is that he doesn't actually have super speed. he can just control his own
time
timeline.
travel. So he's in a faster timeline. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like
so
that's
seemingly
modern.
he's faster than the Flash, though. So it explains it in the show as far as the Yellow Flash or this Reverse Flash, whoever he is.
But the thing is, the reason why I think they're going more so with the Speed Force is instead of the modern Zoom character with the time travel, with the being in a faster timeline. I mean, I could be off, but just for writing purposes, I think it's more symmetry to have him and Barry's power come from the same source. Because that Zoom was a new version. He was a new person, like, because he actually adapted that identity from Professor Zoom, but he called himself Zoom.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, it's a mixture of a few different things. There's elements of Flashpoint, the whole going back in time and time changing, you know, because of something that was done because of going back in time, and you know, they're you know, they've kind of taken the best pieces of the like modern stories and interjected also elements of the classic ones. But yeah, I think, like I say, what we're seeing is we're watching it in the already altered timeline.
Yeah, I see that. And with all of this time travel stuff, I'm very curious to see if they bring out any of the other incarnations of Flash, like Jay Garrick or Wally West or Bart Allen, if they ever go into the future or into the past.
You never know. They might. It depends. Because a lot of times when you adapt some of this stuff over, you got to kind of streamline it. You got to cut the fat that might be too hard to introduce.
Plus, I'm sure they're taking pieces of each of these characters and jamming them into Barry, so you can't really.
We'll probably see Impulse instead of they might not call him Kid Flash. They'll probably maybe call him Impulse or something.
Yeah.
We'll probably see. You know, it'll be a mixture of we'll probably see that in the same way they didn't call Arsenal Speedy. You know, they call him Arsenal. You know.
True.
You know, so yeah, I think we'll see probably that, and maybe another variation on another bad guy connected to the Speed Force and everything. But yeah, a lot of my reasoning, like I said, it comes from things that they've shown in past plots in the comics. Because a couple of things that really stand out for me is the fact that he really is interested in his development. Where he could, if he just wanted to kill him, he could have killed him at any time. But he's interested in his development.
It's almost like he's molding him into the perfect Flash. Exactly.
Which makes me feel like that was his whole, probably something to do with his origins and him coming back in time in the first place. That's why I feel like it's elements of some of the early stuff.
Yeah, and I understand why the Speed Force would be necessary for that, too. Because maybe not having the Flash in the future affects his Speed Force.
Yeah, and then it also could be an explanation where maybe because Wells has been time traveling so much that he a couple times where you see him fall out and lose the power a little bit, maybe it's like taxing his abilities, a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I was also thinking, if they're sticking to just throw us off and throw kind of breadcrumbs, he could be Detective Thawne's descendant, because Thawne is supposed to be that's who was Professor Zoom.
Yeah, and that would take a little bit of work to explain, but
well, if he's from the future,
true.
You know what I'm saying? Like if he was from the future, he's got to have some ancestors, and that was a way to throw us off when they first introduced him. Like, oh, he's going to be Zoom. We're assuming that because of his name, the comic book head. But then that was a way to throw us off, but at the same way still keep it in. Like he might, perhaps he changed his name to Wells when he came back in time, because obviously he couldn't be anybody who Barry might know. He would probably take on an alias. Wells is a made-up name. Or it might be the name of the guy who originally created the accident or something.
Exactly.
But all of this could be totally off, but it's fun to kind of take the puzzle pieces and put them together.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where they're going as far as all the Rogues Gallery and everybody that they've collected so far, Captain Cold's still out there. He hasn't done anything in the past couple episodes.
Yeah, what I can't wait for is the Rogue Crew episode to get together, because he has a similar like kind of Sinister Six crew where it's like Captain Cold, Heatwave, Mirror Master, the Trickster, Captain Boomerang. It's like a crew of like maybe 5, maybe one more.
Yeah,
they alternate like
Gorilla Grodd.
Not in the Gorilla Grodd. He's never done it. He's on some dictator. Like he's too big. He's like Kingpin or something. He hates humans. He would never fucking work with humans.
Well, yeah, I'm just curious to see where they're gonna put him though. Is he gonna break out and is gonna start destroying some of the city, or is he just?
They might go Planet of the Apes with him. He might go, Planet of the Apes with him, where he sees her and he starts to try to create some more intelligent apes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the most popular, telling, dealing with that right now. I could see them saying, what could we use that would modernize? I don't know. I mean, I don't want to accuse them of, ripping off anything, but it seems like a logical, because you're saying he's created by this experiment. You're already saying it's not, because he in the comics he has a whole like race of undiscovered like super apes who are intelligent that kind of one of those hidden kingdoms that nobody ever came across.
Yeah, and it's a cool theory, but it's kind of far out to imagine him getting out of Central City to the jungle.
I'm saying no. What I'm saying is I don't think they're going that route because of how they introduced him. What I'm saying is in the comics, he comes from this tribe that they exist. I'm saying they're showing that they created Pride in the lab. So I'm saying it looks like you're going more in the Planet of the Apes direction, where maybe he'll try to create some more intelligent apes like him.
Have they actually said that he was created?
I think the indication they were keeping him in a lab.
Well, they were hinting towards it, but realistically, if Wells is a time traveler, he could have traveled to a time where these apes existed and brought him back with him.
I don't think so. I think that's too out there. I think that's Sci-Fi Channel stuff. I think they're going to do sci-fi, but they're going to do mainstream stuff.
I don't know. They're really pressing buttons with this time travel stuff. I can't.
No, they are.
No,
and you are. It is a risk because it could get absolutely too heady. But I don't know. I doubt that they'll introduce, from how they've been introducing everything so far, it looks like everything's collected to these labs. I mean, you could be right. Absolutely. Look. They could have, they could have discovered the kingdom and captured one of them and brought them. But I bet they're going the Planet of the Apes route. If I had to put some money on it, I bet they're going that way.
I wouldn't doubt that. That whole Planet of the Apes franchise actually worked out really well, and I enjoyed it, so I could see it working.
I mean, in the DC cinematic universe, they might pull that their world they're building there is a little bit more fantastical, I think, maybe.
I hear you. It needs to be, kids need to be able to understand it if it's going to be a TV show.
I think it's the television version. I just think their universe is a little bit more grounded.
Yeah.
Like in the introduction of all of the way they've introduced all of their characters, it's been in very grounded ways.
Yeah, exactly. It hasn't been super villain, superhero kind of thing.
Everything's been connected, explainable, not just something that out of the blue that's not connected to the plot that we got aliens over here or if they do that Supergirl crossover, but I think being a springboard from Arrow, I just feel like, because they wasn't even going to get that, Arrow at Sword, they wasn't even going to get to that level as far as superpowers. So I think, coming from that springboard, they're kind of more of a grounded universe.
True.
But I mean, it's interesting to see. But, I mean, you heard about the co-spinoff that's coming out, Arrow and Flash, starring the Atom,
Firestorm, Canary. Yeah,
Canary, the old Canary, and also Captain Cold. which I'm hoping, I'm hoping they're not taking him off of being a villain. I think that would hurt the character.
Yeah, I agree with that. He was definitely the coolest villain they had on Flash. And what I had noticed about him, I mean, usually he has a no drug and a no killing kind of code for his team. But
yeah, the Rogues. That's the thing about the Rogues. They, for the most part, some things changed later on. But for the most part, they were always not lethal, just killers.
Yeah, but when they introduced Captain Cold in the show, he was no remorse, just freezing dudes left and right. Just pew, 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 pew. Just...
Yeah, but I think that's, like I said, a change for this universe where, it's a little bit more grounded. And because the Flash almost had a little bit of almost of a playful relationship with the Rogues in the comics, where it was like, I got you again this week, and it was almost like this back and forth game they played. You know what I mean? But I don't think they're going to go quite as lighthearted with the relationship he has with the Rogues in the comics or some of the older versions. I mean, they got dark later on, but I think that I think they want their villains to come across as like, I guess, realistic. I mean, not everybody was lethal. Pied Piper wasn't lethal. He was. He
was. That man was throwing cars off the bridge.
No, you are right about that. No,
he was throwing cars off the bridge. He was firing his waves at I guess it was Star Labs, but I'm sure there was people in that building getting glass shattered at their faces.
No, you're right about that. I guess the killings or attempted murders didn't come across as brutal as the rest of them normally do. Yeah,
because they didn't really show anybody getting hurt. But if you really thought about it, I mean, he was taking cars, throwing them off the dam.
He was making the attempt. Yeah, he was making the attempt. Absolutely.
And I thought it was interesting because the guy that plays Pied Piper, his name's Andy Midas, and he had actually auditioned for Barry Allen when he first came onto the show, but they turned him down.
Interesting. Yeah, man, it's you find that a lot in a lot of castings where I hear Loki and Marvel, the MCU, he tried out for Thor originally.
Oh yeah, I can't imagine that.
Yeah, I think there's a clip online with one of his auditions.
That's crazy.
Yes, I think it's a solid show. I think at the end of the day, it obviously I think it's a success because it keeps you invested. I mean, it keeps you coming back. I'm curious to see what happens. Not bored with it.
I certainly enjoy it overall. It's kept me wanting to watch it every week. A lot of shows, I might wait 3 or 4 weeks and then just binge watch 3 or 4 episodes. But with this show, I'm checking to see when the next one comes out, and these little breaks that they're taking are kind of bothering me. But
that does get on your nerves sometimes because you're like,
I almost thought that the show was over. I'm like, this doesn't seem like a season finale, but there's no more episodes. They already took a mid-season break, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. I understand you want to take a break during Super Bowl season. You're going to lose all your
right.
But then you just take another break? Come on now. There's only 2 more episodes left.
Yeah, man, they're like drug dealers, bro. They give us just enough to keep us hooked.
Exactly. That seems like it's about it for that. What you been up to?
Nothing much. Just a lot of writing. Trying to work on this little graphic novel. Trying to plot out some of these pages. Steady as she goes.
Good stuff. You decided to go with the graphic novel instead of going issue to issue with it?
We'll see. We'll see how many, I crank out, and, if I get to a point where, I feel like, 20 pages, let's see what it looks like. We'll see.
Yeah, I hear you. You gotta let the story tell itself.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that's gonna do it for today in this Atomic Rotation podcast.
Absolutely. It's been good talking with you, brother.
Good talking to you. And I don't know, I guess next week we're gonna come back and break down the Arrow. We've gone into the Flash. Might be a little bit backwards doing the Flash before Arrow, seeing as how Arrow came out first. But want to put our best foot forward here.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Well, for Atomic Rotation, this is Andy Bonesteel.
This is Monjo.
And we will catch you next week.
See you later.
I could pull a better cartoon out of my ass. Hey, whoa! Wasn't that great, kid?